Hello and welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy podcast. My name is Jed and we are reading the Phaedo together. Last time we talked about daemons. Wow. What the heck are daemons? And what do we know about daemons already? Well, in this text, it started with Phaedo saying that Socrates appeared like a great daemon himself. So that's interesting. The other time we've heard the word daemon drop, I think was in reference to actually let's nail this down. Daemon, D-E-A-M. All right, having trouble with the search here. I think it was mentioned D-A-I. It's spelled D-A-I-M-O-N. Here we go. So we heard it. The most good daemons go to the best realm. So we've heard the word daemon mentioned with reference to what are the most good daemons in terms of the most good people, with reference to regular virtues. What do we consider to be the most virtuous people? Because it was mentioned the people who have practiced popular and social virtues, what we normally call temperance and justice, they go to social and gentle tribes like bees and wasps. So of course we want to go beyond that. We don't want to be reincarnated down. We want to be reincarnated up. So there was a question there. What are the true virtues, not what they appear? The other time that was mentioned was in page 41, when somebody who is, let's bring it up in the text, why not? If someone is pure upon leaving, dragging along nothing of the body, and you have had no voluntary association with the body, avoided it, and gathered yourself together as much as you can. Gathered self together, self in herself. If you've gathered the soul together away from the body and gathered self together while out of the body, and you've always practiced this. This is practicing philosophy rightly and really practicing to die. So it's an activity, it's a habit, it's a practice of separating the soul from the body and collecting the soul together out of the body. And if you abide in this way, you make your way to the formless realm, a realm that is not physical. So we might say metaphysical, prior to physical. And that which is like self. So a realm that's more like ourselves, the divine and deathless. Of course, that's where we're in the text, understanding the arguments for the soul being deathless. And phronesis. So this realm is most purely phronesis. Divine, deathless phronesis. Self will be a good daemon, having rid self of wandering, of ignorance, fear, and wild desires and other human defects. Just as it is said concerning the initiates, you will truly spend the rest of time with the gods. This is another time we've heard the word daemon dropped. Good daemon, eudaimonia, can mean happy, but has the meaning good daemon. So being a good daemon is ridding yourself from your ignorance, your fears, your wild desires, and other human defects, what we've been calling purification from our problems, If you abide in this way as much as you can, separating from the body, associating only, not voluntarily associating with your body as much as possible, instead practicing dying, collecting yourself together in order to separate self by self, of course. The first category of the dialectic, the structure of the logos that we're learning, which is dianoia, kind of understanding that is the purification for this experience, but even out of the body, collecting self together, that's a question. How do we do that? Is that related to the dialectic that we're learning in the art of the logos? That's a question. So this is where Daemon was dropped before. Also, let's look for another stage where it's dropped. Socrates appeared to be a good daemon. If you can rid yourself from your wandering and desires and ills, you will be like a good daemon and can dwell in the formless. Okay, here's another time it was mentioned. A kind of power which souls are disposed in the best possible way, nor do they believe it has a demonic force, but they are believed. Okay, so this was Socrates talking about the first search for causes, looking to understand why things are the way they are. Socrates says, hang on a second. They don't investigate why things are made in the best possible way. They don't understand justice or goodness, nor do they believe it has a demonic force. So Socrates recognizes there is a certain cause to our whole physical world, which has a certain demonic force. So there's something that binds and holds selves together that they don't understand. What keeps the world the way it is? What binds everything together? What's the power by which everything is created in the best possible way? Why do things have to be the way they are? And also, what's this demonic force? So, not explained, but Socrates even then recognized there is this demonic force that other teachers are not acknowledging. So, leading him to his own second search for causes, moving him out of regular learning or modern day, same thing in our modern day. We kind of explain things with physical causes, physical explanations for things. We never investigate why things are the best possible way, and we don't examine what keeps things together, what keeps the forces as they are, and we don't talk about the demonic force. Another time, yes, that's the only times we've had mentioned the daemons before. So to recap, Socrates looked like a daemon in his disposition, his state of mind, and in his logos. He approached death fearlessly and nobly, so that it appeared to Phaedo that Socrates will have divine providence and fare well in the next life if anybody will do that, as better than any other human beings. Okay, also the second time we mentioned the daemon, it's when we are in that realm that is divine and deathless, because we've been practicing dying, we've been gathering ourselves out of the body, collecting ourselves out of there, which Socrates outlined in his yoga, in his doctrine of philosophy. So it's a ceasing from our wandering, our desires, our attachment to the physical body, and other accompanying human defects. So we're removing ourselves from our problems. The third time was what we consider to be the most good daemons. Who are the most daemon-like people? Are they those who practice the popular, what we normally call virtue? Live a nice, quiet life, kind of polite to your neighbors? Kind of how, okay, he seemed like a nice person, kept to himself mostly. that's kind of a cliche way of talking about somebody before they discover he was actually a murderer all along. Well, he waved to me every morning. He went to church on Sundays and he kept to himself mostly. He seemed like a very nice, good person. Okay. But they have what we normally call sound-mindedness or temperance and justice. They are good, well-ordered people. Okay, even without that joke about the few that turn out to be crazy or psychopaths in TV shows. But people who generally are well-ordered and have justice out of habit but without philosophy and intellect, their reincarnations are down. Or maybe they go back around into human beings, moderate people. They go around again, or they go down as bees or wasps or ants, social creatures, social and gentle tribes. So what's the key thing? We want to be practicing the actual virtues, so we want to be learning what they are, but also we want to be learning it through philosophy and nous. So it's not opinion, it's not trust, it's not belief, it's not even understanding. We want to be engaging our nous. What's nous? Nous is that faculty of our mind that can apprehend pure being. How do we do that? Well, as we're learning, it's the practice of separating our souls from our physical body through a practice of not associating with our body as much as we can, only what is necessary, and being engaged in philosophy, a kind of reflection, a kind of dianoia, a kind of understanding through the logos with the dialectical structure applied to being, taking with us none of the physical senses, but logos alone, thoughts and understanding and ideas. So that would make us this most good daemon. So we have two things on the board. We have a purification from our problems, our human ills, and a perfection in our virtues. The two parts of the game, both of which require a separation of the soul from the body. And so our question is, how do we do that? Both of which would therefore require us to do whatever is needed to pull this stunt off. And that's what we're learning in the art of the logos. We do that not just the experience of nous, but through philosophy, a kind of learning that requires us to move from learning about the physical world, where we start looking through our senses, looking at physical things, looking at beautiful as adjectives, looking at equal as adjectives. In fact, Socrates says all physical things are the same. Maybe same's not the right word. Okay, all physical things are the same. In that they are here to remind us of the realm of being. Let's see if we can find that quote. Okay, I don't know the actual exact words to search for it, but We did mention it earlier, Socrates did mention it earlier, that all physical things can be understood or seen as the same for two reasons. One, they all seek and desire and yearn for their an aspect of being. They seek being, but they all fall short because they are physical, because they are corporeal. Try corporeal. Maybe try here. No, not that one. Try one more. Okay, can't find it. All physical things are the same, was mentioned earlier, because they all seek being, but also they all fall short by an innate inadequacy. Try that, inadequacy. Innate. Okay, we'll find it later. By virtue of being physical, they will always fall short. So the second way of understanding all things, they have a purpose to remind us of. So they all fall short, and we have thumbs down. They all fall short because they're physical, but their second purpose that all physical things can be understood as is to direct us to the realm of being. We start by looking through our senses as ensouled human beings. But when we recognize that certain physical things share an adjective, there are many instances of beautiful things. We can be awakened to the question, what's the cause of the particulars? What's the cause of the many beautiful adjectives, A's? What's the beauty? Or in philosophy, we call it self-beauty, because self, has its own existence in being. The word self also means the honorific. What is beauty itself? What is self-beauty? Same thing with examples of justice, examples of good things. Don't we all seek good things? What is self-good? Or the example we also looked at, sticks. Sticks appear equal, but sometimes, thumbs up, they appear unequal. Does equal itself or self-equal ever appear unequal? No. So, all things seek being. Therefore, all things need to transition, and also all things are to remind us to seek being. So we talked about that. If you are for walking your highest purpose at all times, you are also helping all other living beings in the best possible way, because you're going to do a better job of reminding them of being. So we should be encouraging everybody to meet their highest needs, including people in philosophy, not gatekeeping philosophy, getting rid of the stigma, getting rid of the need for fancy words, getting rid of this debate bro nonsense, getting rid of a need for having a degree on your wall. Everyone is a philosopher by nature of being alive. The question is, how well do we want to play the game? And how often do we want to play the game? Because this Socrates we just read is saying that we need to practice it at all times as much as possible. That's the virtues. The true virtues. Not just habit and practice, but having the experience and nous and doing it through philosophy. So if we have to be developing a practice of separating the soul from the body, experiencing death, and gathering ourselves together outside of the body, both now and in the future. So there were steps involved. Then we have to go from where we start, looking through our physical senses, get that reminder, oh look, all physical things seem to be seeking being and are here to remind me of being. That's learning. So how do we get the message? How do we remember that which we're here to remember? If all learning is remembering being, and of course, for us to recognize beauty or equality, we've never seen it. It must be a memory from somewhere. How do we get to that realm that we once experienced before we were born? This is the transition from a learning to philosophy. Philos mathesis, lover of learning, to philosophia, lover of wisdom, true wisdom, which is a virtue, which is a practice and habit directed to being through the logos, dianoia, at all times, as much as possible. A practice or habit or virtue that culminates in that experience, so that virtue of wisdom upgrades to phronesis. You actually have an experience of that which you've been learning about and studying and practicing in your understanding, in your dianoia, using what? The terms of the self-logos in the structure of the dialectic. So there's a bunch of duads that we are collecting, patterns of twos, logos terms, dialectic structure, thumbs up, dianoia into nous, virtue of wisdom into the virtue of phronesis, lover of learning into a lover of philosophy, philosophia, which is important. The more patterns we can see, the more we are learning, the more we are recognizing that which points us back to our goal. So that's how do we do that? If in order to purify ourselves from all human ills requires us to do this, how do we do that? And if the perfection of our virtues, so that we reincarnate better, requires this same transition, how do we do that? That's our big question. How do we purify and perfect? Another duad. How do we escape our problems, purify, escape fate? And how do we perfect? Reach our destiny. Another duad, fate and destiny. That's what we have been puzzling about. And the 2 times that Daemon has been dropped until now, 3 times. Number 1, at the beginning, Socrates was described as being a great Daemon, and therefore he will fare well in the next life and have providence, as much as any man can. Number 2, balloons. To be purified from our human problems through the separation of the soul from the body and collecting outside of the body, continuing the process, that makes you like a Daemon. And number 3, to truly be perfected in the virtues. So don't just stumble upon that experience. Don't just ignore your problems and live a pretty good life. No. Perfect yourself in the virtues. Understand what actual temperance is. And we went through that in one of the earlier talks. It's something that necessarily involves the art of the logos, which involves what? Which is a word that we're using to summarize the key terms we're picking up. How do we actually have the virtues? Well, it's not just desiring, mastering some of our desires to be mastered by other physical desires. No. We have to not drag along any physical desires. Well, what do we seek then? What do we desire? What's left? We're not in the realm of being. We're in the physical realm, so aren't we just left with physical desires? Learning. But aren't we just learning about physical things? Don't we learn? Don't we go to college so we can earn more money or become more famous or get more power to become more rich and famous? Aren't they just physical desires? This is why we have to transition from a lover of learning to a lover of wisdom, philosophy. So what can we desire? What's the desire that makes it wisdom? Logos. Logos. Following the logos. Logos is what we can access. It's a kind of thinking, it's a kind of paradigm that exists throughout reality that we can access even while in the physical world, that directs us to the realm of being. So, mastering the logos, mastering the art of the logos, is the kind of learning that can direct us to being, and we call that dianoia. That culminates in the experience of nous. So if there is a understandability in the logos, the structure we are learning as we go of the dialectic together becomes dianoia, that can separate our soul from the body to experience nous. That's a practice we can do that benefits us and anybody else. Therefore, all of those terms we put together in the term art. A model that is knowable, a paradigm that is understandable, a structure of the dialectic that we learn and use, that can be used for our benefit. All of these words is the art of the logos. So, if that's how we separate our soul from the body, in two kinds of ways, applied to the virtues, if that's the kind of learning we need to do, learning about the art of the logos and doing it at all times, desiring it at all times with the virtue of sound-mindedness, trusting it at all times with the virtue of courage, using it as your thinking, your learning at all times with the virtue of wisdom, and functioning with it at all times, the virtue of justice. Again, these are all things we haven't nailed down yet. These are just working definitions that we're trusting until we read the Republic, but they're good enough for now. So if the art of the logos is what we need for the actual virtues, that's not through habit, so we're coming back as a bee, but through nous and philosophy. And also, if it's the same kind of separation from the body that's needed to purify our problems, we can ask the question, how do we apply the art of the logos, the terms, the structure, the understanding, the benefit, the culmination in a higher state of consciousness or being? How do we apply all that, the journey up perfection? How do we apply that to purifying ourselves from our problems? That's a question we have on the table. Is there a kind of art of the logos, a kind of use of the dialectic that's used to uncover and remove problems, just as purification, just as there is applied to our perfection? Now, of course, if we were to experience nous without addressing our problems dialectically, it would have an effect of diminishing the power of our problems, but they'll still be there. So, whether it's on the ladder up or addressing its shadow, similar structure but different terms, we have to master the art of the logos. Now, how do we get there? Well, we start in the realm of becoming, looking at physical things, looking at adjectives, until we recognize every adjective must have a cause. Even this world, there must be a reason why the world is the way it is. There must be something holding it together. There must be something even causing the causes. And there must be a daemonic force in here helping and guiding us. If we start to ask those questions, a search for higher causes, we are necessarily going to move from the physical world to asking questions about mind. Because what decides? Mind. What judges based on what's good? Mind. What can know the good? Mind. What does a daemon have? Mind. So that's where we are. In order to purify ourselves from our problems, perfect ourselves towards our destiny, we have to discover a higher reflection on causes. Of course, as we learn the dialectic, we recognize, actually, hang on a second, there's a reflection on causes. There's a causal unfoldment and a causal return within the dialectic, which is curious. But that's where we are in the text. Socrates says, the physical causes wasn't sufficient, I had to go on a second search for causes on my own. So this is our transition from the physical world of becoming physical things, material things, through the second search, a higher search for causes, into the realm of being. And of course, one such thing that has an existence in being is our soul. So we are understanding the nature of our soul, why it's immortal and indestructible. So we're learning that. We're also on a second search of causes, and if the way in which we perfect and purify ourselves, the way in which we practice philosophy correctly through the practice of death and dying, is the art of the logos. Remember all those terms we have? Unified, using the logos through the dialectic on being to develop dianoia, culminating in experience that you can integrate if you've been practicing at all times and not associating with the body. The art that can equally be applied to what isn't true to purify ourselves. If what's needed to purify and perfect is the art of the logos, we are on a hunt for the art of the logos. And Socrates says specifically, you need it. You can't just trust the logos. If you do, you won't be able to judge whether people or arguments are trustworthy, and you'll be let down, and you'll end up hating people or hating the logos, and you won't reach being. You need to develop the art of the logos. This is what Socrates is passing on. So that's where we are. We're on the hunt for mastery of the art of the logos. That's a cause that's motivating us, causing us to be here. It's a higher cause in mind. Also, we want to learn about Socrates' second search for cause, to learn how we can make that jump from physical to metaphysical, from learning to philosophy. And third, we are on a hunt to understand whether or not the soul is immortal and how we can know and prove it. So those are the three causes. Now, Cebes has kind of tapped out. He accepted a kind of a lame argument for the soul's indestructibility. Many people would agree with that. He doesn't distrust. Trust isn't good enough for us. Caring about what other people think isn't really good. Simmias tapped in. He said, hey, I don't distrust, but I want something more. I understand human frailty. The fact that other humans would agree isn't good enough for me. So Simmias tapped in. Can Socrates prove to us and Simmias that he's already shown that it must be immortal? That idea of you bring in an idea that can't sustain its opposite? But is it also indestructible? Now, that's where we were, but all of a sudden Socrates started talking about daemons. What the heck? We're supposed to be mastering the art of the logos, number one, understanding how Socrates got into philosophy through a second search of causes, and number three, understanding whether or not the soul is immortal and indestructible. We've already knocked immortality out of the park, but what about indestructible? So if that's what we're doing, why is he talking about daemons? Considering it's been mentioned twice, one to do with purification, one to do with perfection. Oh, and also right at the beginning, as a kind of promise, one of the first things said about Socrates is that he looked like a great daemon, and because of that he will fare well and have divine providence in the next world. Where's my... So why has he made a jump? Has he forgotten about our three causes? So that's where we are. So daemons are important. we become like a daemon when we remove our problems, and we have to be most like a daemon at the end of our life through our practice of our virtues, our study of the art of the logos. So what exactly are daemons? Let's jump into the text and see, with that question in mind, what the heck is he doing? Socrates, the one who got into philosophy because he was specifically searching for a higher understanding of causes, he dropped these 3 causes? Is he forgetful in his old age? I thought he was all about causes. He forgot those 3 causes? Mastering the art of the logos? Learning about his second search for causes? And also showing the soul is indestructible? What's he doing? Oh, and by the way, part of his search for second causes, this was the other time the daemon was mentioned, was he recognized, oh, there's a daemonic force necessarily in reality that physics teachers are missing. By only pointing to physical causes, not only do you neglect why things are the way they are, ordered perfectly, you neglect mind, you neglect a force that's keeping everything together, even the physical things. You're neglecting the cause for all those things, and you're neglecting a daemonic force that has to exist in reality. So that's the 4th time it was mentioned. So let's jump into the text and figure out why the heck is he talking about a daemon. And by the way, those who have read the Apology knows he's in this predicament because he believes in a daemon. The 2 charges against Socrates, one was a prejudice against philosophy, that he makes the weaker argument sound stronger and therefore misguides the young. And the real reason is because he believes in daemons that the state don't understand or believe in. So kind of important. So let's jump in and figure out what the heck is daemons about and how does this relate to what we are supposed to be doing in our mastery of the art of the logos. Let's have fun. Okay. So we have to thoroughly discuss the selves. So this is our Simius tapping in and CB's tapping out. We're not okay with just not distrusting. We have to have a clearer explanation if they are actually to be trustworthy. So Socrates said, hey, it's not good enough. Not good enough, CBs. We just said we have to go, well, trust is important, but we have to have better reasons for trust. Not just what he gave, which was every human being would agree that the immortal has to escape destruction because it's everlasting. Because if that is destroyed, then nothing will escape destruction. Every human being would agree to that. Therefore, I don't distrust. Socrates says we need a clearer examination if they're to be trustworthy. We have to thoroughly discuss selves in a sufficient way. Keyword sufficient. If we follow the logos as far as a human is able. So this is our virtue. Doing it as much as we can. Separating from the body as much as we can. These are the virtues. And of course, leaves a clue open. Does that mean if we are out of the body or in our next incarnation, we'll be able to pursue the logos, follow the logos even better? That's a question. Because that's a question we've had all the way along. Because it doesn't seem like separating from the body is the final step. So maybe we continue. Kind of makes sense. If following the logos is the most important thing we can do here, would that change in higher levels of reality? Would that change on other planets? Would it change at other times? And if this self, the logos, becomes clear, we will seek no further. Interesting. So maybe there is an end to the game. It is just, and we have to have courage that to think that if the soul is immortal, she needs our care in this time that we're alive and in all time. So this is a kind of definition of what the soul is. We're using the snowman working definition, but now Socrates is giving us some more information. The soul's job is to care for us. Not just in this life, but all time. The danger would be terrible if death was an escape, because it would be a windfall to the wicked, having been freed from the body, and at the same time of the wickedness or their vice. So it would be an unjust if there wasn't an immortality of the soul. Notice it would be terrible and a danger right after he dropped the word dikaios, justice. So kind of a clue there. Because wouldn't it be just? Would it be unjust? Okay, so there's no other escape from our soul or from vice except for salvation by becoming as good and phronesis as possible. Phrenomotetin, as most phronesis. For the soul goes to the realm of the invisible, possessing nothing else than her education, her paideia, and her nature. Nurture, education and nurture. So this is what we take with us. Maybe it's worth doing. And we greatly benefited or harmed while being dead. From the very beginning of that journey. Again, this question, once we reach that realm, is that the end? No. There is a journey. And we need to bring with us our education and our nurture, our art of the logos paideia, and our application of it at all times, virtue. And seeking it and following it and doing it at all times. Okay? We are told, that's a puzzle, that when each person dies, the daemon of each soul, allotted to them while living, so we're allotted a daemon while we're alive, leads us to a place in the unseen, where those who have been gathered together, interesting expression, we've talked about gathering our soul together out of the body, are judged. So there's a kind of judgment. We proceed with that guide that has been allotted to us, lead them there from here. So there's a kind of journey to the place. Having undergone that which they must undergo and stayed there for the appointed time, the stuff that we do there, another guide leads them back safely here after many and long-lasting periods of time. So we go through a long-lasting bunch of stuff and many stuff. So we have a guide in our life that also guides us to this place. Then he tags out, similarly to CB's being tagged out for Simius. We have another daemon or guide that guides us back to our physical life, our reincarnation. But it's not as Aeschylus Telephonus says, that it's a single path to that unseen place, but it's come to light for Socrates that it's not simple nor one. For then there would be no need of guides. It was obvious and just one path. We would have no need for guides. We would miss the mark. There would be no way to miss the mark if there was only one path. There are many branches and circuits, and I report this from my sacred rites. He's experienced it. He's gone through this. He knows from experience. And the sure signs of the common laws. So understanding the laws of reality, understanding the logos. So it's understanding and it's experience. Of course, laws is a metaphor or a terminology used in the Republic also to refer to the logos. So laws. The laws of reality, the understandable patterns and principles. So here we have his experience and his understanding. So A well-ordered and phronesis soul follows his guide. So our virtues, well-ordered of course being the virtues, and of course phronesis being the fifth virtue, the virtue that we want the other ones to reach. We follow our guide, which is interesting because it seems like phronesis requires the sacred rite. It requires, so you can practice the virtues without an experience. From reading is what we're doing here. But when you have that experience, that seems to be necessary for phronesis. Not phronesis of the body, but pure phronesis. Okay? And it's through that experience that we said that we can become Daemon-like, both in purifying our problems and upgrading our virtues. So if we are Daemon-like, maybe we have more of an understanding or recognition of that guide which we follow. So if we have the purification and perfection through our virtues and phronesis, we'll follow the guide, and we're not ignorant of our circumstances. So maybe we know why we are here. And of course, if we understand that our problems are, or if our life is ordered because of that cause Socrates mentioned, the way it should be, and there's a kind of justice, even to our soul, depending on how we live, then we'll probably become aware of why we are the way we are, why we have the problems we have, and why it's good and best for us to have these problems. For our education and nurture. Part of learning and benefiting from the art. Okay, but on the other hand, the soul that has spent his life becoming passionately attached to the body fearfully flutters around the body and the visible place. You also mentioned that earlier, what we talk about in tombs and grave sites. Ghost stories. Oh, they're still attached to the physical world. That's why this place is haunted. Ooh. Well, there's truth to that. Because our lives are like that. We can be like ghosts, passionately attached to our physical body when our soul isn't in the physical body. We are fluttering around it and attached to the visible place we can see through the physical senses. That will cause us, if we keep doing that, we will struggle much and we will suffer much. We're not doing our job. We're getting all those human ills we talked about, and we're not reaching our true purpose, that which really motivates us. So that's a kind of suffering. Our problems give us our struggles, but we're being led away by force and with difficulty by our daemon. So whatever our daemon does to get our attention, maybe gives you nightmares. I don't know how, but it doesn't seem good. So we want to do our best to follow the daemon. When you arrive at that place where the others are, the impure soul that has committed an unjust act, such as murder or trafficking in such crimes, unjust murder, trafficking in such crimes, which are akin to unjust murder, which are the activities of the souls which happen to be akin to those activities. So, what's that? Your activities or your functioning is akin to what the soul is. So there we have definition, the nature of the soul manifests in its activities. So our activities and our virtues can purify our soul. Otherwise, the nature of our soul will play out its kind of activities, which will lead into a loop of reincarnations, which we want to escape from. Escape, probably not the right word. Purify ourselves. To upgrade out of. This soul will be avoided and turned away by all, and are neither willing to be a fellow traveler or guide. Thus, on the other hand, self keeps wandering completely at a loss until a certain time should arrive, whereupon, having been completed, surely then is self is born by a necessary to her proper habitation. So if we haven't done our paideia and we haven't done our nurture, we haven't mastered the art of the logos, and we haven't practiced this through habitation, then when we get to that realm, we'll be wandering, we'll be at a loss, we'll have no friends and no guides. And then after a while of however terrible that is, we'll be reborn into whatever is necessary and proper. So there's a kind of justice. Why are we here? Well, we must have been like that. We must have been at a loss in that other world. And therefore it's necessary for us to learn what we need to learn for our paideia and nurture. Art of the logos and virtue. There's some problem that we're born into. It's not a blame game. It would not be just if we could not solve our problems. And it would not be just if we weren't given problems. It's necessary we have a kind of problem that we do based on how we fared in the other life so that we can purify and perfect. Problems can be seen as gifts always through the art of the logos. So it's necessary for us to have our problems. So anyone who blames or punishes or says evil or sin is the cause of problems is themselves terrible. They are functioning in a terrible way. They are doing unjust things. It's going to affect their soul too. Why? Because they are ignorant that it is necessary that we have this kind of incarnation and get this problem to give us a certain puzzle that we can solve, that can lead us to necessarily mastering the art of philosophy, practicing the virtues, purifying us from what we thought was most real and clear. That's the cause of our problems, nailing our soul to the body. Let's find it in the text. Here we go. Every time a human feels excessive pleasure and pain towards something, by the way, this is the greatest and worst problem. Excessive pleasure and pain, you will led to believe that this experience must be most clear and real. And it can't be this way because these are visible realm stuff. This will make the soul bound to the body. This conclusion that our excessive pleasures and pains are most real and clear nails the soul to the body. And we need to purify ourselves from that belief, false conclusion, false hypothesis, so that we can be in communion with the divine company and of the pure and uniform. And it's for the sake of those beings that one who truly loves learning becomes orderly and virile in a just way. So there's our sound-mindedness or temperance, there's our courage, and there's our justice. Okay, I'm missing the fourth, missing the other one, wisdom or phronesis, depending on where you are at in your sacred rites and your initiation, in the experience of it. So, back to where we were. All right, so okay, because of those experiences and those conclusions about it being most real and clear, nails our soul to our body, affects how we do in our next life as well. Therefore, we are given a proper habitation. We're born into a certain family, culture, country, time period, religion, with false beliefs that reflect our problem, that we will play out. The activities of the soul will be akin to the nature of our soul, the way it's been nurtured. So hopefully will give us a problem, and anyone who says problems are bad or you need to be punished are missing the point completely. They need to do this work because they are committing unjust acts, because there is a reason why we're here. Problems are necessarily understandable, and we get them because of what we need to learn. They are gifts. They can open up questions and help us to learn the art of the logos and develop the virtues, because we didn't have them completed prior to this proper habitation that we are born into out of necessity. So proper, necessity, key terms needed for justice. Okay, so this brings in our question. Why is Socrates talking about this? Well, he's saying, look, if you look at physical causes only, you will not see why it is best that the world is this way. You need to understand that. So Anaxagoras, which started talking about mind, woke Socrates up a bit. Thank goodness. Because mind is something that makes decisions based on what is most good and just and best. Like Socrates was saying, I do have physical causes, bones and sinews, but because my mind has decided it's best to be here, that's why I'm sitting here. So too, we need to apply that to the macrocosm. If we have mind, we have to necessarily conclude that mind is a part of the reality. And if we are born out of this reality, then it must also have mind. And therefore must also be using that as a higher cause, more causal cause. So why is it the world, why is it that the way the world is best? Why is this what's best? That's how we make decisions. That's a cause. So, and of course, it wouldn't be just if our soul is destroyed after we die, of course, because there'd be no implications for our vice. It would be a windfall for the wicked. But it must be necessary and proper that we are born the way that we are, with our problems and with our forgetfulness that we have to remember of the nature of being, the way things really are, so that we can learn and go from learning to the true learning, true philosophy. So the soul that has completed life in a pure and measured way, so done the learning that we're given our problem and forgetfulness to purify and perfect ourselves to address. If we've done that, so we can complete life, there's an interesting point. Socrates saying, yeah, you can complete in a pure and measured way. Actually, let's remove that. You meet with the gods as fellow travelers and leaders, so that we find company there, which is interesting. And each self soon arrives at her own proper place. Interesting. Again, the word proper. It's necessary and proper that it's the way, even in that life. You'll have a place. You spend your life mastering the art of the logos, then you're nurturing and learning. Not just learning it, but doing it. Then you'll be at a proper place where you can find fellow travelers and leaders. Okay? But also there are many wonderful habitations belonging to the earth, and self is neither as it is supposed to be by those who talk about the earth in regards to her nature or her size, as I have been persuaded by someone. Okay? We've all been told what the nature of the earth is and her size, but it ain't true. Whoever's telling us about the nature of the world, maybe they can only perceive the physical things of it, because they didn't even get to Anaxagoras' level. If we have a soul, does the earth have a soul? I don't know. So that's our question. What do you mean by this? Says Simius. I've also heard a lot about the Earth. But what's convinced you that the Earth is different in nature and size? I'd be glad to hear it. Okay. So we've got all that stuff about justice and our incarnations and why we have the problems we have, and that we have a daemon and we have to do our best to listen to it and be guided by it. And that we become more like the daemon in our perfection and purification. So the application of our art of the logos, the application of the logos and dialectic to our puzzles, our problems, and to our virtues, our learning, our education, our paideia, makes us most like the daemon. Those were our two hints earlier that we're weaving together. Why is it? Why does it matter? Well, we need to be in an activity. Our soul has to be doing an activity of following our appointed daemon. What makes us able to do activity? Our nature. The activities of souls are akin. Our souls are akin to the activities. So if our soul becomes most like a daemon, we'll be able to do activities with the daemon. We'll be able to follow our guide. So how do we do that? Purification, perfection. How do we do that? The art of the logos. How do we do that? Find the self-logos terms in the dialectic structure. What's that called? Dianoia. What does that open us up to? Nous, which is a mystical or spiritual initiation, experience of the realm of being. So what? Well, if you've gotten there through the art of the logos, through dianoia and the virtues, then you can integrate that into phronesis. We have a phronesis soul, and the well-ordered and phronesis soul follows the guide and is aware of your circumstances. So you would have necessarily figured this out. In solving your problems, you would have figured out, oh, by the way, if my problems are solvable and inevitable, given my habitation, there must be a reason for it that caused me to be benefited through this learning. Therefore, I will become aware of my circumstances. So not ignorant, we have to do the work, flip it. We are aware of our circumstances. So again, makes it all simple. If the virtues are a kind of harmony, as he's told us earlier, the argument of the virtues, soul is harmony. Soul isn't harmony because the virtues are harmony. We must be harmonized towards a single note or activity. What can we call that? What's that which is equally needed for purification and perfection? Equally allows us to become aware of our circumstances, and that it's just that we are where we are and we have the problems we have, that there's a consequence in the next world. What's that which allows us to be able to become aware of our daemon and follow its guidance? What's that makes us well-ordered and also phronesis? What's the one thing that encapsulates and allows us to do all those things? The art of the logos.
Wow.
Wow. Okay, so we've got a single activity that we can focus on, which is important because that allows us to develop our sustained focus and meditation into contemplation. And it's a kind of phronesis that isn't directed towards the body and is necessary to meet fellow travelers and leaders in the next realm too. So hey, wherever you go, ask the same question. Who's mastering the art of the logos? Who's in the Phaedo right now? Who's got a question that we can practice the dialectic on to practice our art of the logos? Wherever you find yourself, whatever planet, time, or realm. Okay, so Simon's like, well, okay, what do you know about the Earth? that I don't know. I've learned a lot about the nature and size of our planet Earth. What do you know, Socrates? With all of your mysterious wisdom and your sacred initiation and rites and your phronesis and your noesis and your all of these higher cognitive functions and experiences of reality, seeing the many paths that people walk. What did he say? He said, from my experience and my understanding, there are many branches and circuits, which is why we need guides. Many paths to that unseen place. Okay, so you've recognized, you've seen, and you've understood that there are many paths to the unseen place. You know a lot about daemons. You know a lot about what's in the next realm. So you've seen a lot there, Socrates, of this world and the next, and the transition, the many branches and circuits, the many guides, even the transitions back from that place to this place. So you've seen a lot about that place. You've seen a lot about how we get there. You've seen a lot about how we come back. But what about here? Socrates is seeing. Let's draw a picture of Socrates. Seeing. So this is Socrates. Got a beard. What a bad picture. This is a Socrates guy. Folded arms. In a wizard's robe. Okay. So what has Socrates seen? What has he just in that paragraph? And by the way, if you're reading a paragraph where you've just been given a bunch of terms, then he's saying make it into a dialectic. So give him a wizard's hat. What has Socrates seen? Well, he's been talking about the realm of being, or the unseen, or Hades. He's been talking about the journey to there, journey 2, and he's been talking about the journey back, journey back. So we got terms that we can add in, like Daemon guides us to do with our education and nurture. No. There are what do you say? There are many branches and circuits. Many branches and circuits. Circuits. Also, our journey back, which is necessary and proper. Necessary, proper habitation. So what isn't he telling us about? He's also in the realm of being. He's talked about if we have fellow travelers and guides. So of course, I'm just doing 2 for each. Let's move this down here. Now, I'm encouraging anybody listening or watching, to make their own list. Don't just believe me. Because why? Because if you don't practice, you won't be nurturing your soul. You won't be able to make this journey well. And if you're not doing it, if you're not practicing, if you're not doing what you need to develop the art of the logos and the virtues, which is doing this, making your notes, playing the game, solving the puzzles, then you won't fare well here. You will have no fellow travelers in that realm. And you will have no guides. And therefore you will be knocked back into a kind of reincarnation necessary. That's your proper habitation based on the problem due to your lack of playing. And it's fun. And by having a single function, you can unify your consciousness, unify your life. So many things we have to do. Oh my God, there's so many things. Maybe there's only one. And maybe living that way has an effect on your consciousness and your soul, both in this life and the next. So and if you do it, your journey, you'll be able to follow your Daemon well through many branches and circuits. And when you get into that realm, of course, you'll be able to develop the virtue of phronesis. You'll be made most good. You'll be most phronesis, philomodedin, and you will be able to benefit from that initiation. You'll be a true mystic or a spiritual person. And when you do get there, you will find fellow travelers, you will find fellow travelers and guides. So we've seen a lot about, a lot about this realm. We've seen a lot about our journey to it. We've seen Socrates has just said a lot about our journey back. But now we're asking, what about here? What about here? Let's make some space. Move it over a little bit. Cebes not judging or trust and only trusting, and Simmias does not trust human frailty. So that was before. So we've seen Socrates. What has he seen? Well, he's seen a lot about this realm. He's seen a lot about the journey to and the journey back. But our question is, well, what the heck? What about here? What about this place? What about this place? Huh? With all your wisdom, your initiation, your phronesis, your virtue, your experience of this, often practicing the art of death and dying, being a true philosopher, with all of your understanding about that journey there and your journey back, maybe because he's done the journey many times, he's seen the many circuits, he's seen the daemons, he's seen what happens here, he's probably met fellow travelers and guides, and he's seen why people come back. But what about this? Socrates says, hey, the nature and size of this earth is not what the same. The nature come on. It's very cold where I am right now. Nature, so my fingers aren't finging well. Nature and size is not what they are telling us. And Simius says, he says,
What? 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 What?
he says what all those times. So, let's see what he's talking about. So, what does Socrates have to say about using all of his insight and experience that he has, all the special knowledge he has? What can he tell us about? Oh yeah, about our world. Let's see. So he's pulling out this guy, Glaucus. Not Glaucon, Glaucus. Someone who I guess is a geologist. Okay. I do not take the art of Glaucus to set in detail what is said. However, as to prove their truth, it will come to light for me to be more difficult than the art of Glaucus, whoever that is, and at the same time, I might not be able to do so. Even if I had the knowledge, it appears to me that I don't know, blah, 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 blah. Rambling. I do not have sufficiently long enough to tell the logos, but nothing keeps me from telling what I am convinced is the idea of earth and the regions of self. Okay. Now, multiple reading, right? The idea of earth and the regions of its honorific. And also understanding that even the earth is a region of self if all is in self. So by understanding the true nature of our planet, not only are we learning about the physical thing and its nature and its cause, we're also learning about ourselves. Even if the physical world is a reflection of being, and being is a reflection of self, it is still a reflection. We can learn about us. If we're here to learn, why not learn about something, an aspect of ourselves by looking at the reflection? Now, it's not the thing itself, but it can give us some information to take back with us as we return. Just like you look at a beautiful thing, it's not beauty itself, but you might be able to reflect on it. Oh, proportion, symmetry, balance, flow, all these aspects that you can learn about from the physical reflection of beauty. Just like looking in a mirror. It's not you, but you can learn about yourself, some things. So, with that in mind, what the heck is going on our planet? The Earth is a sphere being in the middle of heaven. What? I am convinced, in the first place, if Earth is a sphere in the middle of heaven, then self is in no need of air or any other necessary element, such as this, to keep self from falling, since the overall likeness of the self of heaven in relation to self and the equal balance of the self of earth are sufficient to maintain self. So the self of heaven and the self of earth, so heaven and earth have selves, and they're in equal balance, For an equally balanced resource placed in the middle of something like will have no tendency to incline more or less in any direction, but will continue to remain uninclined in the same way.
Flibbity gibbity nonsense.
Okay. Before we unpack it, let's have a go at the other translation to see if it brings anything else to light. Of course, we have to go back and unpack it, 109a. But let's check out the other one. We can predict it's going to miss the word self. Here we go.
Allow me to introduce importing all preferences from home interface.
I am convinced then, in the other translation, that in the first place, if the earth is round and in the middle of the heavens, it needs neither air nor any similar force to keep it from falling, but its own equipoise and the homogeneous nature of the heavens on all sides. Okay, this is what we needed to hear. On all sides suffice to hold it in place. For a body that is in equipoise, let's find out what equipoise means. Equal distribution of weight, equal balance, equilibrium. All right, fancy pants with your equipoise. So for a body that is in equipoise and is placed in the center of something which is homogeneous, of course, meaning a very smart gay person. All of the same kind, alike. So it's balanced all around. So if you are equally balanced in the middle of something that is all of one thing, homogeneous, you cannot change inclination in any direction, but will remain in the same position. This then is the first thing of which I'm convinced. So, Earth is in the middle of something which is homogeneous or the same on all sides, so you don't need anything to keep it there. And in our other text, we recognize that what it is homogeneous in is self-heaven. The self of heaven is in equal balance with the self of earth. But also there is an overall likeness of the self of heaven. Okay, so what was translated as homogeneous is overall likeness. All right, both fit. Okay, let's keep going in this text. Right, doesn't move about and there isn't any to move into or from. Let's keep reading this one. Secondly, said he, I believe the earth is very large, and that we who dwell between the pillars of Hercules and the river Phasis. Okay. Can I open up this? What is the river Phasis? All right. It's not helping us out. Live in a small part of it about the sea, like ants or frogs about a pond. Okay, we're living between the pillars of Hercules and the river Phasis. I really want to know what the river Phasis is. Modern day river in western Georgia. Oh, Phasis was a river god of Colchis in the Black... Okay, modern day Georgia. Alright, let's go back. We live in a small part about the sea, like ants or frogs about a pond, and that many other people live in many other such regions. For I believe there are in all directions on the earth many hollows of very various forms and sizes, into which the water and mist and air have run together. But the earth itself is pure and situated in the pure heaven, in which the stars are. The heaven which those who discourse about such matters call the ether. The water, mist, and air are the sediment of this, and flow together into the hollows of the earth. Now, we do not perceive that we live in the hollows, but think we live on the upper surface of the earth. Just as if someone who lives in the depth of the ocean should think he lived on the surface of the sea, and seeing the sun and the stars through the water, should think the sea was the sky, and should, by reason of sluggishness or feebleness, never have reached the surface of the sea, and should never have seen by rising and lifting his head out of the sea into the upper world, and should never have heard from anyone who had seen how much purer and fairer it is than the world he lived in. I believe this is the case with us, for we dwell in a hollow of the earth and think we dwell on its upper surface, and the air which we call heaven, and think that the heaven in which the that it is the heaven in which the stars move. But the fact is the same, that by reason of feebleness and sluggishness, we are unable to attain to the upper surface of the air. For if anyone should come to the top of the air, or should get wings and fly up, he could lift his head above it and see, as fishes lift their heads out of the water, and see things in our world. So he would see things in that upper world. And if his nature were strong enough to bear the sight, he would recognize that that is the real heaven, and the real light, and the real earth. For this earth of ours, and the stones, and the whole region where we live are injured and corroded, as in the sea things are injured by the brine. And nothing of any account grows in the sea. But there is, one might say, nothing perfect there, but caverns and sand and endless mud and mire, where there is earth also. And there is nothing at all worthy to be compared with the beautiful things of our world. But the things in that world above would be seen to be even more superior than those in this world of ours. If I may tell a story, Simmias, about the things on the earth that is below the heavens and what they are like, it is well worth hearing. Wow.
Wow.
So what's he doing here? He's creating a metaphor between a fish sticking his head out of the ocean and seeing the real world, but confusing the sea to be like air, maybe, to how we live in our world. We are mistaking things to be a certain way, when out of our sluggishness and feebleness, we are not able to see the way this world really is. Okay, so there's that level of metaphor. But there may be a third level of metaphor. Remember how he started? He started by saying, well, hang on a second. There are many branches and circuits from this world to the realm of being. Otherwise, we wouldn't need a daemon to guide us. So he's probably not talking about the physical earth being having many hollows and rivers or things for moisture. So there may be a sea is to the earth metaphor to understand the difference between how we think the world is and what's actually going on if we can see it with the soul, with the eye of the soul. It might not be physical. Well, obviously it's not physical. So the sea is to earth as earth is to the way the earth really is in the fourth dimension. Maybe. It's all pretty obtuse right now, but that's where we start. We have to be confused. We have to look for puzzles. We have to be at a loss to begin with, to develop a question, to get puzzled, to open ourselves up to insight and seeing. So let's get more confused by reading. So let's keep reading that translation, and then after we finish, go back into the Balboa and point out the differences. So that's interesting. Okay, let's jump into this one. So, if we should get wings and fly up and lift our head above it. So, a fish sees through the water as we have to finish the metaphor. Every term will have a metaphor. He's helping us. He's giving us a metaphor from which we can pull out the key terms to discover the patterns and to find the equivalent terms. So, just as a fish could stick his head above, a fish lift their head out of the water and see things in our world, so he would see things in the upper world if our nature was strong enough to bear the sight and would see the real heaven. So he's talking about this, sounds like this movement of the soul. The movement of the soul from the realm of being. Sorry, the realm of becoming to the realm of being. So we have to be strong enough and not feeble and sluggish, so we can stick our head above the water, so get wings and fly up somehow, somehow getting wings, so we can see the true nature of the world. Right, soul separating from the body. Soul can't separate from the mind. Right, so the question in the chat, does the soul have a mind or mind a soul? Good question. Good question, because what we're calling the soul is that which brings life into the body. So it might be the soul is what brings mind into a physical body. But keep that question going. It's a good one to have. So, talking about fish and how we can separate ourselves from our physical senses, which is the whole true practice of philosophy. Socrates goes, can I tell a story about the things on earth that is below the heaven and what they are like? It is well worth hearing.
Wow.
By all means, Socrates, says Simmias. We should be glad to hear this story. Well then, my friend, said Socrates, to begin with, the earth, when seen from above... Okay, so this is all our questions about... Given all of the things Socrates has said he has, he's been initiated, he's had noesis, he's practiced this, he's lived life this way, so he has good reasons, good knowledge, good nous, good dianoia, good phronesis, good experience to trust where he's going, be familiar where he's going, to lay out all this stuff that he laid out for us. So with that perspective and those experiences, what can he tell us about the earth when seen from above? When you're out and you're looking down at the earth, what does it look like to someone with this sixth sense that we are wanting to awaken? It's said to look like those balls that are covered with 12 pieces of leather. It is divided into patches of various colors, of which the colors which we see here may be regarded as samples, such as painters use. Interesting. 12 pieces of leather that are colors, which are kind of, we take samples of for painting in a ball. But the whole earth is of such colors, and they are much brighter and purer than ours. Interesting. For one part is purple of wondrous beauty. Interesting. Beauty is one of the questions we have. What's beauty itself? And one of the transitions from the becoming to being. Beauty is adjectives to beauty itself. And we want to see a higher level of beauty. So interesting. One part, purple of wondrous beauty. One is golden and one is white. Whiter than chalk or snow. Oh my God. And the earth is made up of other colors likewise. And they are more in number and more beautiful than those which we see here. Interesting. There's kind of apprehension of color that is more beautiful and yeah, more beautiful than we see here, and more in number. Interesting. For those very hollows of earth which are full of water and air present an appearance of color as they glisten amid the variety of other colors, so that the whole produces one continuous effect of variety. And in this fair earth, the things that grow, the trees and flowers and fruits, are correspondingly beautiful. And so too the mountains and the stones are smoother and more transparent and more lovely in color than ours. So, there are things that grow. The trees, the flowers, the fruits appear more beautiful, and the mountains and stones appear more smoother and more transparent and more lovely in color than in the way we see it. In fact, our highly prized stones, shards, and jaspers, and emeralds, and other gems are fragments of those there. But there, everything is like these, or still more beautiful. Interesting. We have fragments of that which is more real in our precious gems. And the reason of this is that there the stones are pure and not corroded or defiled as ours are, with filth and brine by the vapors and liquids which flow together here and which cause ugliness and disease in earth and stones and animals and plants. So there is ugliness and disease on our earth, caused by filth and brine by the vapors and liquids. Interesting. Yeah, we have diseases on earth. There is a fair amount of ugliness on earth. Interesting. Maybe it's not the same case for the real world. Or from the real world looking back down at earth. Okay. And the earth there is adorned with all the jewels, and also with gold and silver and everything of the sort. For there they are plain, in plain sight, abundant and large, and in many places, so that the earth is a sight to make those blessed who look upon it. Right? You will be blessed if you are able to separate the soul from the body, look back at earth, and recognize all of these things that Socrates is accounting for us. And there are many animals upon it, and men also, some dwelling in land, others on the coasts of the air, as we dwell about the sea, and others on islands, which the air flows around near the mainland. And in short, what water and the sea are in our lives, air is in theirs. And what air is to us, ether is to them. So he's giving us terms so we can fill out our own analogy. He's giving us some work to do. And the seasons are so tempered that people there have no diseases and live much longer than we. And in sight and hearing and wisdom and all such things as are much superior to us, as air is purer than water, or ether than air. Okay. So we have water and sea, they have air. What we call air, they have ether. So it's kind of one dimension up. So we still have air, but it's our highest. For them, it's the lowest. It's like water. And there are no diseases. The seasons and temperature are much better. They live longer. They have better sight, hearing, and wisdom. It's much superior to us, as air is purer than water and ether than air. Now, for those who don't know what ether is the upper regions of space, the clear sky, the heavens, the medium supposed by ancients to fill the upper regions of space. So, what they considered to be in space, like in the vacuum, we would say now. So actually, we don't really use the word ether now, but because we think the space is in a vacuum. But this is actually a good way of defining what ether is to them. As air is to water, so too ether is to air. an imagined substance that is beyond our physical atmosphere. Okay? And they have sacred groves and temples of the gods, in which the gods really dwell. And they have intercourse with the gods. Wow. So they have intercourse with the gods.
What? What?
By speech. Oh. Whoops. By speech and prophecies and visions. Okay, so they're communicating with gods through speech and prophecies and visions. And they see the sun and moon and stars as they really are. And in all other ways, their blessedness is in accord with this. Is space many or one? It's an interesting question. Can you say more about that in chat? Such then is the nature of the earth as a whole, and of things around it. But round about the whole earth, in the hollows of it, are many regions, some deeper and wider than that in which we live. So there are hollows and regions, some deeper but with a narrower opening than ours, and some also less in depth and wider. So there are hollows and regions deeper and wider. Now all these are connected by one another by many subterranean channels, some larger and some smaller, which are bored in all of them. And there are passages which much water flows from one to another as into mixing bowls. And there are everlasting rivers of huge size under the earth, flowing with hot and cold water. Passages and water flowing and mixing bowls. Hot and cold water and fire, and great rivers of fire, and many streams of mud, some thinner and some thicker. Now, there is lava and stuff under the ground, right? And water channels. So, is this similar to our physical world? Interesting. Nope. Okay. Many streams of mud, some thinner and some thicker, like the rivers of mud that flow. Okay. Whoops. Oh no. I just I imagined lava when he talked about rivers of fire, and now he just mentions it, so I got a bit ahead of myself. Rivers of mud that flow before the lava in Sicily, and the lava itself. These fill the various regions as they happen to flow to one or another at any time. Now, a kind of oscillation within the earth moves all these up and down. Kind of oscillation. And the nature of the oscillation is as follows. One of the chasms of the earth is greater than the rest, and is bored right through the whole earth. This is the one which Homer means when he says, far off, the lowest abyss beneath the earth. Okay, so there's lots of things flowing and channels and mixing and mud and river and and water, hot and cold water, and fire, and lava. There's an oscillation. Within the earth that moves things up and down. And the nature of the oscillation is as follows. One of the chasms is greater than the rest. Okay, so there's a big chasm. So Homer says, far off the lowest abyss beneath the earth, and which elsewhere he and many other poets have called Tartarus. Tartarus. For the rivers flow together into this chasm and flow out again. And they have each the nature of the earth through which they flow. Okay. So the Tartarus, all rivers flow into this chasm and flow out. And they have each the nature of the earth through which they flow. And the reason why all the streams flow in and out of here is that the liquid matter has no bottom or foundation. And so it oscillates and waves up and down. And the air and wind about it do the same. For they follow the liquid both when it moves towards the other side of the earth and when it moves towards this side. And just as the breath of those who breathe blows in and out, so the wind there oscillates with the liquid and causes terrible and irresistible blasts as it rushes in and out. And when the water retires into the region which we call the lower, it flows into the rivers there and fills them up as if it were pumped into them. And when it leaves that region and comes back to this side, it fills the rivers here. And when the streams are filled, they flow through the passages and through the earth, and come to the various places to which their different paths lead, where they make seas and marshes and rivers and springs. Thence they go down again under the earth, some passing around many great regions and others around fewer and smaller places, and flow again into Tartarus, some much below the point where they were sucked out, and some only a little, but all flow in below their exit. Some flow in on the side from which they flowed out, others on the opposite side, and some pass completely around in a circle, coiling about the earth once or several times, like serpents, then descend to the lowest possible depth and fall depth, then descend to the lowest possible depth and fall again into the chasm. Now it is possible to go down from each side to the center, but not beyond, for there the slopes rise forward. The slope rises forward in front of the streams from either side of the earth. What the heck is he talking about here? Joe.
Flibbity jibbity nonsense.
What in the heck are we talking about here? What in the hell heck are we talking about here?
How does this relate to anything we've been talking about? How does this relate to the art of the logos? How does this relate to the second search of causes? How does this showing the immortality of the soul? Because this is supposed to be his argument for the immortality of the soul. No, the indestructibility of the soul. What's all this crap? Mud and rivers and flowing and oscillation going from one side to the other, coiling about the earth once or a few times, then going down to the bottom, but then rising out, but not rising out because the slope is forward in front of the streams. What the heck is he talking about? This is nonsense. Joe?
Flibbity-gibbity nonsense.
Let's keep reading and see where it goes. Now, oh my god, how long is he going to crap on about this? So I don't see how it relates to anything we've been doing. We've done such good work. The book was so good up until here. Now these streams, which are many and great and of all sorts, but among the many are 4 streams, the greatest and outermost of which we call Oceanus, which flows around in a circle. Okay, there are 4 great streams. And opposite this, flowing in the opposite direction, is Acheron. Oceanus and Acheron, which flows through various desert places and passing under the earth, comes to the Acherusian Lake. So Acheron goes to the Acherusian Lake. To this lake, the souls of... Oh, maybe now we're getting to why he's talking about all this nonsense. To this lake, the souls of most of the dead go. So these streams and channels and oscillations and crap are something to do with our souls. And maybe what was the expression that we used? He called it the many branches and circuits that lead to the unseen place, therefore why we need Daemon guides. So maybe we're getting to what he's talking about. To this lake, the Acherusian Lake, which is going the opposite direction to Oceanus, the souls of most of the dead go, and after remaining there the appointed time, so there must be a judgment and an appointed time, which is for some longer and for others shorter, are sent back to be born again. There we go. Into living beings. Oh hey, welcome deleted Daemon. Welcome. We are reading the Phaedo. Okay, so to this lake, the Lake Acheron, which goes the opposite direction to Oceanus. This is where most of the dead go, and after remaining there an appointed time, which is longer for some and for others shorter, they are sent back to be born again into living beings. Now the third river flows out between these two, and near the place whence it issues, it falls into a vast region, burning with great fire, and makes a lake larger than our Mediterranean Sea, boiling with water and mud. Thence it flows in a circle, turbid. Now you might be wondering, what the heck does turbid mean? Cloudy or opaque, with suspended matter. So turbid and muddy, and comes in its winding course among other places to the edge of the Acherusian Lake, but does not mingle with its water. Then after winding about many times underground, it flows into Tartarus at a lower level. Okay, referencing Tartarus again. So that's the greatest one, the greatest hole, Tartarus. This is the river which is called oh my goodness, Pyriphilegon. How do we pronounce that? Pyriphilegathon. Okay, so this is Pyriphilegathon. And the streams of lava which sprout up at various places on Earth are offshoots from this. Opposite this, the fourth river issues. Okay, so we've got Oceanus going one way, we've got Acheron going the other way, going to the Etruscan Lake, which is where most of the dead go before being born again. The third river is between them with a great fire and burning mud and turbid. It flows around in a circle. Goes to the edge of the Etruscan Lake but does not mingle with its water. After winding several times, after many times underground, it flows into Tartarus at a lower level. This is the river which is called Pyriphilegon. My goodness, I forgot already. And the streams of lava which sprout out of various places are offshoots from it. And this is our third one. Pyriphilegathon. Okay, this is the third one. Pyriphilegathon. Pyriphilegathon sounds nasty. Acheron, it's where most people follow to the Etruscan Lake. And Oceanus, don't know what that does. Okay, opposite Pyriphilegathon is the fourth river. Right. Acheron is a ancient term that goes back to Egypt. Right, the Daemon is one of our questions. So he said, hey, because there are so many passages, we need a Daemon. We need a guide that we issued that guides us to the afterworld. Okay, so the fourth river is said first into a wild and awful place, which is all of a dark blue color, like lapis lazuli. Lapis lazuli. You might be wondering, what the heck is lapis lazuli? Well, it is a deep blue metamorphic rock, a semi-precious stone that has been prized since antiquity for its intense color. Wow. This is the, oh my goodness, Stygian River. Okay, our fourth river is the Stygian River, which is a wild and awful place, but is very blue. And the lake which it forms by flowing in is the river Styx, or the lake Styx. And when the river has flowed in there and has received fearful powers into its waters, it passes under the earth and circling round in the direction opposed to that of Pyriphilegathon, it meets it, and coming from the other way in the Etruscan Lake. And the water of this river also mingles with no other water, But this also passes round in a circle and falls into Tartarus, opposite Piphirligathon. And the name of this river, as the poets say, is Cocytus. And here's a quote: "Such is the nature of these things." Now, okay, it's not a quote, it's just still him talking. "Now, when the dead have come to the place where each is led by his genus, by his kind, his species, or his kind, genus, first they are judged and sentenced, and they have, as they have lived well and piously or not. And those who are found to have lived neither well nor ill go to Archerion, and embarking upon vessels provided for them, arrive in them at the lake. There they dwell and are purified. And if they have done any wrong, they are absolved by paying the penalty for their wrongdoings, and for their good deeds they receive rewards, each according to his merits. But those who appear to be incurable on account of the greatness of their wrongdoings, because they have committed many great deeds of sacrilege or wickedness or abominable murders or any such crimes, they are cast by their fitting destiny into Tartarus, whence they never emerge." Wow, that doesn't sound too great. Never emerge? Curious. That's an interesting puzzle. Some souls, because of their great injustices, can never emerge. Okay, whereas those who haven't done great nor too bad, they go to that river, they get penalties and rewards and are purified. Okay, they never emerge. Those, however, who are curable but are found to have committed great sins, who have, for example, in a moment of passion, done some act of violence against mother or father, and have lived in repentance the rest of their life, or who have slain some other person under similar conditions, these must needs be thrown into Tartarus. And when they have been there a year, the wave casts them out. Interesting. So what's going on in Tartarus? The homicides by way of Cocytus. Those who have outraged their parents by way of, oh my goodness, Pyriphlegethon. And when they have been brought by the current to the Acherusian lake, they shout and cry out, calling to those whom they have slain or outraged, begging and beseeching them to be gracious and to let them come out into the lake. If they prevail, they come out and cease from their ills. But if not, they are borne away again to Tartarus, and thence back into the rivers. And this goes on until they prevail upon those whom they have wronged. For this is the penalty imposed upon them by the judges. Right, this is a penalty imposed by the judges. Okay, we have to beseech them to be gracious and to let us come into the lake, because there seems to be some punishment in Tartarus. And some souls never emerge, some can. If they can beseech those they wronged to be gracious. Okay, those who are found to have excelled in holy living are freed from these regions within the earth and are released as from prisons. This is a huge metaphor. We're in a prison. Socrates took his chains off his leg, legs. He talked about separating from the body as if through separating from chains. He talked about the chains of fate, the unsuspected false beliefs that keep us bound to our problems. So another level of prison and chains and release in the text. Okay? So those who have excelled in holy living are freed from these regions within the earth and are released as from prisons. They mount upward into the pure abode and dwell upon the earth. Interesting. So the afterlife isn't really the afterlife. There's all this other stuff going on before you get into the real world. Or rather, the afterlife isn't the destination. There's all this stuff happening, and you might get reincarnated. You might get stuck in Tartarus, or you might get reincarnated. But there is people who are, not so great, not so bad. They have rewards and punishments and are purified in that lake. The ones that are super, super bad and can't be made better, which is a puzzle. I'm puzzled about that. I don't want to bring in my own personal beliefs. I want to match the level of seeing of Socrates, of course, but I do have a puzzle. Is that justice? Or what would be the cause that makes the soul irredeemable? Or could it be, like he said, certain souls might be purified because they are irredeemable, but that doesn't destroy the self? Like he said, if the soul is destroyed, I wouldn't be worried because that means my ignorance would go, because the self wouldn't be bound to that particular soul. So we're not allowing the self to be destroyed. So there's a lot of puzzles that you can get from our reading as to this, those who can't emerge. But we do have these classes, right? We've got the so-so people who have rewards and punishments and are purified and then reincarnate. You have the people who can't escape Tartarus. What happens to them? I don't know. Something happens to their soul where they're stuck there. You have those who are bad but can change their ways. They have to plead for graciousness from those that they wronged, they slayed or outraged. And now we've got this fourth class. Interesting, because we've had 4 rivers. So what we're looking for, key terms and patterns. So there's a pattern of 4 here. So these fourth kind, they mount upward into the pure abode and dwell upon the earth. Of these, all who have duly purified themselves, there's our purification, tied to the separation of the soul from the body, tied to the mastering of the dialectic, the art of the logos and dianoia. Our purpose here, tied to the art of the logos, though purified by philosophy, not just through habit, but through philosophy and nous, remember, live henceforth altogether without bodies. So they escape this cycle of reincarnation and rewards and punishments, and pass to still more beautiful abodes. So it doesn't end there. They go on to another realm, but beyond bodies. They've learned what we're here to learn, which is not easy to describe, nor do we have enough time, nor have we now time enough. Okay? Take the time, Socrates, talk about the more beautiful abodes. But Simmias, because of all these things which we have recounted, we ought to do our best to acquire virtue and wisdom in life, for the prize is fair and the hope great. Now it would not be fitting for a man of sense to maintain that all this is just as I described it, but that this or something like it is true concerning our souls and their abodes, since the soul is shown to be immortal. I think he may properly and worthily venture to believe, for the venture is well worthwhile. And he ought to repeat such things to himself, as if they were magic charms, which is the reason why I have been lengthening out the story so long. Oh, that's why he's going on and on. This then is why a man should be of good cheer about his soul, who in life has rejected the pleasures and ornaments of the body, thinking they are alien to him, and more likely to do him harm than good, and has sought eagerly for those of learning, and adorning his soul with no alien ornaments, but with its own proper adornment of self-restraint, temperance, and justice, and courage, and freedom, and truth, awaits his departure to the other world, ready to go when fate calls him. You, Simmias and Zebes, and the rest, will hereafter, each in his own way, you will go there hereafter, each in his own time. But I am now already, as a tragedian would say, called by fate, and it is time for me to go to the bath. For I think it is better to bathe before drinking the poison, that the women may not have the trouble of bathing the corpse. A lot there. A lot of reading. A lot of reading there. On and on and on. A lot of particulars. Now, this is probably for a good reason. All of the things we've been talking about should be able to fit into this last story, his last words. So, he gave us his definition of philosophy. He's demonstrated it. He's divided it into the different arguments and addressed what isn't true, the Simmias and Zebes problems. Now he's giving us this big story of what the earth looks like from his perspective. This stuff. The journey to that realm, the journey back, what the earth looks like, what the realm of being looks like. He's given us all that in this big ass story where we have to synthesize everything we've been seeing and relate it back to the definition. Can we see in this story all of the text that we've been seeing so far? How does this tie a ribbon on things? How does it conclude? Can we pull out the key terms, find their metaphorical equivalents? What are they analogous to? Can we look for patterns? We've seen fours already. That's significant. What other patterns are there? Now, we read the past translations. We haven't read the important translation, the Balboa translation. So we won't have the key terms. We've got a vague overview of the bones of what he's going to do. We need to flesh it out. We need to jump into the Balboa and read the actual Greek without the misinterpretation of the translator, without the misinterpretation from the influence of history, the counterattack to Socrates, where we've fallen since Socrates. We want to wipe all that out and read the Greek the way it's written with the key terms. That will allow us to, there'll be a lot of differences, by the way, to what we just read, but it will allow us to weave those key terms together from the text. The sections, the key terms can be like buttons or key points that we can bring that passage in. We will find new puzzles. We have to read the Greek the way it is in the Balboa to really make sense of all that. But we have an overview from today of kind of what he's going to do. He's kind of describing these different things, what the world looks like. He's going to use a lot of adjectives. They all should have a meaning. If we miss one, we've missed it. Because he's not getting paid by the word. So they all have a meaning. It's up to us to look for those puzzles, look for those patterns, look for those questions, and look for the solutions in the text. And it should, if he's ready to have a bath and die, it should bring everything together. maybe even his whole life's work, but at least the text. Otherwise, the text is garbage. Otherwise, it falls short. Maybe not garbage, it just falls short. Like many other books and films and TV series, maybe starts all right, but then it peters and it wanes and it doesn't conclude. I don't think we can expect that from Socrates. But it's up to us. We have to judge him the way we are to be judged. How can we judge Socrates? We have to gain what we need to be able to judge. We need to gain the art. We need to match this level of excellence, this level of purification, so that we can judge him and say whether or not he missed the mark himself. And if he has, hey, maybe we can fix up the text. Do our own revised edition. But it should bring it all together and maybe open up more profound questions. And maybe give the specifics to what was more general. Talked about reincarnation, but hey, maybe we can actually understand it specifically. Really nail down the nature of reincarnation and the nature of our reality and what we should be doing here. Wow, there's a lot we can open up and a lot we have to do, especially if it was so much that he said all at once. When someone gives a big speech like that, someone like Socrates, pay attention. He might be bringing it all together. We have to see it for ourselves. So important. Maybe it can bring everything together and maybe open up a different dimension of our own seeing. Different level of cognitive function. Hey, if dianoia leads into nous and this is the end of our dianoia, this is the end of our dialectic, maybe there's an opportunity for our awakening to see the world this way. Our initiation, maybe. I don't know. There's only one way of finding out. To match that level of integrity, to match that level of artfulness, to play the game as excellently as we can. Virtue. On that cliffhanger, I hope to see you next time. I hope you're excited. I hope you see the stakes of what we're going to be doing next time and the possibilities. Wow. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for joining me in chat. Thank you for the new chatters. I hope you had a good time. I hope you weren't too puzzled if this was your first introduction. All of the rest of the series, I think we're 56 episodes in, thereabouts. You can find them all on YouTube for free. There's a link below, Awakening Philosophy at YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, feel free to like and subscribe and share it with other people if you think they might be interested in this kind of game. What Socrates is saying, the most important game for this life and our incarnations, and maybe going beyond our incarnations. That's exciting. If you want to follow along, Awakening Philosophy on Twitch, there's a link below. If you want the text for yourself, there's a free link below. And also, if you want to join the Discord, you're welcome to. Share your thoughts and questions on Discord. And if you have the means to and you think this is worth sharing with others, feel free to support on Patreon. That would be very much appreciated if you think this channel is worth maintaining itself. If you want to support it, if you want to be a patron, you can find a link below and that would be greatly appreciated. Until next time, I hope you've been stung with questions and I hope to see you next time too. Thank you so much for joining.